Now, a comprehensive report in The New Yorker investigates what writer Heidi Blake calls Andrew Tate's empire of abuse. Blake plumbed through reams of private messages and sealed court records detailing violent and disturbing allegations. Now, before I'm joined by Heidi, a warning: this conversation will contain descriptions of sexual violence which may be difficult to hear. Heidi Blake, I want to welcome you to the program. Thanks for being here.
Yes, everyone. In this video, we are going to be talking about either your most favorite or most hated media personality, one Andrew Tate. Now, for the last few years, he has been public enemy number one to several governments, several female organizations and male organizations, and the public in general, with his antics and his rhetoric and his beliefs.
Patriarchy, patriarchy, patriarchy.
Him and his brother, Tristan Tate. Now, a couple years ago, he did an interview with the BBC that went viral. The woman was asking him questions, and he was trying to answer in a diplomatic way, but we all know how it was meant to paint him. He also has a lawsuit going on in Los Angeles, I believe, and he still has a case in the UK. I don't know if his other case, I believe, is in Romania, I think, or one of the countries he was staying in. I don't know if that's still ongoing, but he has several legal battles in multiple countries.
Lock his ass up. Lock his ass up. You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Well, the woman that produced this article right here, this was of the 8th of June in 2026. Andrew Tate's empire of abuse. How the defining figure of the manosphere built a fortune and became a political force by systematically exploiting women. Yes. By Heidi Blake. As I said again, June 8th of 2026. Now again, Andrew Tate has been accused of some very heinous and despicable things. He has defended himself several times, but of course, he is still under investigation and heavy amounts of scrutiny. And of course, him and people like Myron Gaines and other people like that, their ilk, are the face of the so-called manosphere. So we're going to get into this, of course, before I do. And again, fair use to CNN, how Heidi Blake documented Andrew Tate's empire of abuse. Before we get into this reaction, if you haven't done so already, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If you want to further contribute to the channel, please hit that hype button down below to hype me up in the algorithm. And of course, hit the Cash App $Mr. Normie. So let's listen to Heidi Blake describe how she was able to document all these bad misdeeds of how Andrew Tate got his millions in his empire and how he's so influential, even though apparently to most, I said allegedly because he's not convicted, he's a dirtbag.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, in reading this investigation and just reading the details, I literally almost became physically ill just from reading it. And then I had to think about what the victims went through in terms of what they went through when this was going on, and then having to recount it, not just to you, but to authorities as well. And you point out this is really, when it comes to Andrew Tate, you've documented it now, right? There are allegations of grooming, coercion, rape, trafficking, all kinds of abuse, and so much of it out there for anyone to see in plain sight. You know, this is ultimately a story about Andrew Tate, or is it really the institutions that have failed to stop him? Because as I said, I was floored by everything you uncovered.
Now, again, a lot of women in particular, but people in general, they're flabbergasted. They're angry at what Andrew Tate has allegedly done. Again, I say allegedly because he hasn't been convicted in a criminal court. However, there's evidence out there. There's phone records and financial statements and personal accounts from individuals, mainly women and some men, that was running his business. Yeah, they say that apparently this man was, again, he had women doing bad things for him in the name of getting money and getting fame and getting clout and things like that. And yeah, he basically got rich off the backs of women, young women especially.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think in a lot of ways, this is a story about impunity and about how the Tate brothers have managed to, after spending so many years systematically exploiting women and bragging about the way in which they've systematically exploited women to their many followers, are now managing to evade justice for those actions and to leverage their political connections, particularly on the right wing in America, to get away with it. And that was partly what excuse me, that was partly what prompted me to begin investigating this, was that, last year in February, shortly after Donald Trump's re-election, Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate were freed from all travel restrictions in Romania, where they faced very serious rape and human trafficking charges.
Yes, I believe last year, maybe early this year, they traveled to, they came to the country, I believe, via Florida. And then I think somewhere along the line, they traveled, they did some podcast interviews and things like that. And this is where the lawsuit from that one woman came in. And again, his organization, which I believe is called the War Room, this is where he was able to make his money and influence other men to be certain ways and do certain things. And he said a lot of controversial stuff on X. And yes, the new administration came in. They lifted the travel. No, let me back up. The Romanian government, I believe, lifted the travel restriction because they weren't able to keep him under house arrest, I think. And so he did travel to the United States for a small window of time. And he also has family in the States as well, I believe. And yes, he got to meet some people. He did some appearances, and then he went back. And now he's in trouble in the States too.
Allowed to travel the world freely, and since then have been proclaiming their innocence and declaring that the case against them is totally defunct and going nowhere. And that happened after the US applied pressure on Romania, and the prosecutors lifted those restrictions under a significant amount of pressure from the US. And so I really wanted to see.
By the way, he has the war room, and I believe his other group is called, I believe if I'm not mistaken, I think it's called, I want to be accurate, it's called either The Real World, or I think it's called The Real World, formerly Hustlers University, I believe. So I just want to make that clear.
What had the brothers done, and to dig as much as I possibly could into the evidence that I could find to document their actions over the past 10 years, and to try to give that context to people who are just hearing the brothers constantly declaring that there's no evidence at all.
And yet you point out that the Hertfordshire investigation in the UK is just one of many disturbing parts here. In 2014 and 2015, think about how long ago that was. 3 women, Hannah Price, Maya Navarro, and Amelia Walker, they went to British police alleging rape and strangulation by Andrew Tate. Now, he was arrested, but then ultimately the case collapsed. Prosecutors declined charges again in 2019. Where do you see it if police and prosecutors had properly investigated those early allegations, understanding where we are then as well in the Me Too development? Is it possible here that Andrew Tate never becomes the global figure that he is now?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I think there's a strong case to make that if those 3 women had been taken seriously and properly listened to a decade ago, that Andrew Tate could have faced justice, could have been held accountable, and that perhaps other women would not have suffered in the way that they have in the years since then.
Now, again, these 3 women came with allegations against Andrew Tate. I don't know what happened with that with the government or the law enforcement in the UK, but those allegations were not, as they say, taken serious. I'm a little bit, I would say this right here. I don't know what happened to those allegations, okay? They weren't taken serious enough where they brought charges or put some kind of investigation on Andrew Tate, so they were eventually dismissed, okay? And so because of that, now those allegations are coming back. So I'm sure there will be proper investigations done to substantiate or refute their claims. And again, I say alleged because he has been convicted. These women have allegations. They're not charges. So I'm sure the UK is not doing their due diligence to how would I put this? To investigate the prior claims and the new ones and figure out which ones are credible.
It's shocking the way in which that investigation was handled. You had 3 women who all went to the police and made very similar allegations that they had been assaulted, raped, strangled by Andrew Tate. And that investigation was left to gather dust for 4 years. Almost nothing was done about it. The police left Andrew Tate's phone lying around the station and didn't download it properly, which meant important evidence became effectively unusable. And meanwhile, Andrew Tate, by his own admission, skipped the country and moved to Romania, a jurisdiction where he himself has said he is freer to continue behaving towards women in the way that he wishes to behave without.
Now, I will say him moving to Romania from the UK once those claims were, squashed, that's not a good look for him, I would say. If you move to a whole nother country, like if you're innocent, right, you will stick around. Now, I do understand that in today's climate with Believe All Women and movements like that, to me, men are guilty until proven innocent. The Believe All Women thing kind of for men means that they will be automatically believed, which will make me automatically guilty. And so I understand to a point why he would move, but in society, that also makes him extremely guilty in the eyes, or so in the court of public opinion, if you will. So, yeah, double-edged sword there.
Facing any action from the authorities. And so, yeah, that is a really shocking example of the way that a failure to take rape allegations seriously by the police can have very far-reaching consequences.
Yeah. In fact, he says it loudly.
And again, the term taken serious means that we should automatically move on these. And I get it. There has to be an initial, I assume, I'm not law enforcement, so I assume there's supposed to be some type of initial investigation. If something comes of that, then a further on full investigation comes, and then charges are brought and trials are had and things like that. So I don't know if they did the due diligence in the beginning and found those charges or those allegations not credible, or they didn't do anything about it at all. So that's on the UK police. If they didn't do anything at all, then, some heads should roll.
Proudly, just in the last few days, Andrew Tate was sitting on a golf course just outside of Moscow, I point out, giving an interview in which he dismissed Romanian prosecutors and compared Romania's justice system to Zambia's, and argued that if he had actually hurt anyone, he wouldn't be a free man today. Listen.
The Romanian state has the same level of judicial integrity as Zambia. So anything they say, we can take with a large pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Do I know women? Yes, I'm a full-grown man. Do I know men? Of course. Do I know people? Yes, I'm a famous man. I know people. But if I had ever hurt anybody, especially with how hard they've tried to put me in jail, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
What strikes you about that?
Well, I think what strikes me about that is that Andrew Tate has been saying publicly for years that he moved to Romania specifically because it is a more lenient jurisdiction when it comes to crimes against women. And he's openly said Romania is a corrupt country and I can use that corruption to my own advantage, and that's why I want to be here. He's declared for years that he's above the law in Romania.
If he said that, if you said that and somebody heard that, again, we're talking about witness accounts and things like that. But if you actually said that I moved here because the laws are more lenient against crimes against women. If you actually said that, man, that's an L. That's an L for sure. Yeah.
I think it took him very much by surprise when the Romanian authorities did bring this human trafficking case against him. But now, of course, he is turning that argument on its head and saying it's a corrupt country and shouldn't be taken seriously. The fact is that there's a rape and human trafficking investigation into both the Tate brothers in the United Kingdom as well. They are wanted on 21 combined counts of rape and human trafficking in Britain, and they are not being extradited at the moment from Romania because a Romanian court has ruled they can't be until the Romanian prosecution has run its course. Now, I obtained private...
Oh, yeah, I forgot. The Romanian government basically took up for the Tates. They said that, we know you got charges in the UK, but since you can't extradite because he moved there because of the leniency of the laws, right? Well, you guys in the UK can't come in our country and scoop him up. So he's basically like, ha, 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 ha. 21 counts in the UK. Oh, man, traffic.
In which the Tate brothers said to each other and to their advisors that they were effectively being protected by Romania from having to go and face justice in Britain. And so I think Andrew Tate sort of plays the system the way it suits him at any given time. But I think there are very, very serious allegations for him to answer in multiple jurisdictions.
What you're saying, though, is so shocking because despite all the documented evidence, the investigations, and you say there are still these allegations out there, these investigations out there, he's still broadcasting. We just saw him, right? He's still traveling. He's still growing his audience. And I want to point out, he is still making money from the likes of Apple and YouTube. What does that tell you about power and impunity online here?
Yeah, it's extraordinary to me that brothers are allowed to continue traveling, continue expanding their reach, continue making money, given the gravity of the allegations against them. That was a big part of why I wanted to dig into this investigation in the first place, to understand how that could be. I think they have very assiduously courted a number of powerful allies on the right, in particular Elon Musk, who is someone who has come out and declared the case against them bogus and said that they're the targets of some sort of liberal smear campaign to distract from actual sex trafficking. There are other major allies as well. Donald Trump Jr. is another person, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. All of these very prominent figures on the right in America have come out to defend the brothers and to defend their right to continue.
Now, I will say that Andrew Tate, over his years online and with his rhetoric and his talking points and things like that, he has amassed a lot of powerful allies, if you will. Now, again, these women are here, and shout out to them for doing their homework and things like that. But when I hear people say, well, how are they able to still operate with these allegations going on? Again, allegations are not charges. Allegations are not convictions. So are you upset that these allegations are out there and he's still able to do these things? Yes, but at the end of the day, the law is the law, right? These are still allegations until, a full-on until he gets locked up and charged with something. He has the right to do what he wants, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's how the law's set up in most countries, right? Most, first world countries or second world countries, whatever. Until you're convicted of a crime, if you've made bail and you've done all the necessary steps to be free, at least temporarily, he can go online. He doesn't have a gag order against him, so he can go online. He can make money. No sponsors that he's under has pulled, out from under him. So yeah, until he's convicted or until he's charged with a crime, he can still move freely about the cabin outside in the world. You might be upset about that, but be upset with the law because that's how it works. Until he is formally charged with anything, he's going to continue to live his life freely and how he wants to do it on his terms until something changes. And that's, and you would want that if you was under scrutiny as well. I would want that if I was under scrutiny. I would still want to be able to go out and do what I want to do until I'm either proven innocent and then I can, tell everybody to F off, or they prove me guilty and then I have to face further justice. Okay? And then I can defend myself if I feel I'm innocent. That's how the law works.
Broadcasting and saying whatever they like. But when I met Andrew Tate at a cigar lounge in Bucharest this spring, he said to me something which has become quite a familiar argument of his, which is, if I'm a human trafficker, show me a victim. Why are there no victims speaking out? Well, I went out and spoke to more than a dozen women who, say that who are alleged victims of the Tate brothers. I gathered accounts from many more victims in the form of witness statements and other documentation. There are a lot of women who feel that they were very seriously victimized by these two men.
And there's also, there's conspiracy theories out there that people are out to get him because of how he speaks on masculinity, how he speaks about certain things. There is also a theory out there, a conspiracy theory, if you will, that he's being targeted, to basically silence him through these charges and these allegations, or I'm say these investigations and allegations. Okay, I would say that. And, I get it. Just like, Bill Cosby, just like, R. Kelly, just like, Weinstein, everybody else. If enough people come out against you, even if it's false, it's going to seem real. And most of the time it's real if more than one person comes out. Once one comes out, the woodwork, all the other ones come out. So she said, I think over 12, 15 women came out. They all have similar allegations. You're running the same type of business, right? So they all can say basically the same thing. If they have evidence, again, you're in trouble. Because usually when these cases drag on like this, like the Diddy case, either they have a lot of evidence or they're just grasping at straws. Usually it's the latter. They're about to slam you really hard and they're just waiting for the right moment, the right evidence, the right thing to put the cherry on top to come put you in handcuffs. So there's that.
They kind of come up with any number of different arguments to try to bat those charges away. But the fact remains the evidence against them is voluminous and, they have a lot to answer for.
So Heidi, you just mentioned you did sit down with him. I mean, why did you decide to sit down with him, and what most surprised you about your encounter?
Well, I thought it was really important to try to understand Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, his brother, and understand where they're coming from and their psychology, and also to give them a fair chance to genuinely tell me their side of this. I really wanted to hear them out, and I spent a huge amount of time with Tristan in particular, who did give me a lot of his time, both on the phone and in person, and about an hour with Andrew talking to him about all of this. And what really struck me in the meeting with Andrew was that he lied very brazenly about the nature of his webcam operation. Not only did he tell me that he's not a misogynist and has never said anything that designed to denigrate women, which is plainly untrue if you look at his many online pronouncements over many years. He also said to me that his webcam business had been closed for 10 years at the point that he was raided by Romanian police, which is demonstrably totally untrue. That's actually, before it even was established. He's saying it was. Yeah,
he definitely lying. He's definitely lying about that. He's lying about a few things, I would bet, because they would paint him in a bad light. If he told the truth about what he was really doing, I mean, at best he would be shunned by the community. At worst, he'd be locked up. All right. So I don't know the nature of his webcam business, but all these charges stemming from this webcam business they had. And there are statements out there where he was talking about what he was doing to women, how how he could manipulate them and things like that. So there's already public statements he made on different platforms about this business. Again, doesn't make him look good. I always say alleged because he hasn't been convicted yet, but the evidence against him does not look good at all.
Before it even began. So, I was struck that he could look me straight in the eye and tell me these barefaced lies.
And yet,
and I think you see that happening, in the interview clip that you just played.
and so in sitting down with him, though, did you come to understand why he has had such an influence in the manosphere globally?
I think that he is quite adept at sort of donning a different skin suit depending on who he's talking to. So in the conversation with me, he was careful to be respectful of women and to say that he's not a misogynist. And, he was a very different character than the character you see online. I think I got a better understanding of the way in which he's built such an enormous audience online from kind of studying his methodology over the years. And I think there was a really crucial moment in 2022 when he devised a really ingenious way of expanding his global following, which was to establish something called Hustlers University, which was an online school that purported to teach modern wealth creation methods, but which actually functioned as a sort of gigantic content factory for Andrew Tate, because it had this affiliate marketing program in which members could earn commissions by clipping up Andrew Tate's videos and reposting them. And so suddenly he had thousands and thousands of fan accounts churning out his content day and
Yes, a few years ago, if you go on TikTok or you went on IG or X, all you saw was Andrew Tate freaking clips. I mean, they were all over the place for like a year, man. I mean, goddamn. But and I think to a lesser degree, well, they're not doing that so much anymore. He's kind of in hiding now. He hasn't done content like he used to do. He's still on Rumble doing stuff, but people aren't clipping him up like they used to because Andrew Tate is kind of the saying that is leaves a salty taste in everybody's mouth now. And him being the face of the manosphere, I mean, that was one of the biggest mistakes of the manosphere to have him be the face of it, to be honest with you. Because his rhetoric and his way he does things is probably, and I hate to say this, I hate to use this word, but I'm just gonna be real. His stuff is probably the most toxic of anybody you would find in the manosphere. Okay, so making him the face of it, or indirectly because by not keeping him at bay, allowing him to become the face of it by default, was one of the biggest mistakes of the manosphere and social media in general. But to the male centered space, but yeah, again, not so much anymore.
Out and pumping it into algorithms that are primed to amplify misogynistic and extreme ideas. And so that.
Oh yeah, and a correction I made. I was talking about Hustlers University, or Hustle, whatever the hell, and the War Room. That was a third organization, that was separate from those, which was the webcam business. But I think he's basically shut that down once all this allegations started coming out. It wasn't 10 years ago. It was recently within the last, I would say, 5 years or so, maybe. But yeah.
Summer of 2022, Andrew Tate's content exploded. It was viewed more than 12 billion times on TikTok alone that summer. And he just became this global force. And that happened to coincide pretty closely with the human trafficking investigation. He was arrested.
Which, by the way, that multi-level marketing thing with basically people being his promoter, was actually a good idea. For that time anyway. If all these allegations hadn't been out there, he would probably be online still even bigger now.
At the end of that year.
Right.
And so I think that kind of fed into why there were so many figures on the right who were prepared to stand up and say that he was being targeted by political smear campaign.
Heidi, we only have about a minute left. And in that time, could you really put the focus for us on the women, the victims that you have met? Because they have been harassed, threatened, discredited. Do they have a hope that the Tates will finally be accountable?
Well, I think there are a lot of women who showed an extraordinary amount of courage in trying to bring Andrew and Tristan Tate's actions to the attention of the authorities. There are a group of 4 women in the United Kingdom who are bringing a civil case against Andrew Tate for rape and sexual assault. And they have been a real driving force in holding the authorities here to account and making sure that this investigation stays on the agenda. There are also women who have very bravely testified to the Romanian authorities and are strongly continuing to seek justice there. And I think it's so important that those women's voices are heard. There are a community of women in multiple different countries describing an extremely similar pattern of conduct, grooming, coercion, extremely similar sexual assaults on the part of Andrew and Tristan Tate. And I think their voices need to be heard.
You certainly have distilled their suffering, quite frankly, in a very disturbing way, which brings a whole new light to this case. Heidi Blake, we want to thank you for joining the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ooh, boy, he is going to be in some hot water.
Ain't no fucking way.
Yeah. Again, this is another expose. I could not read the whole thing because it's very lengthy, but I'll leave a link to it in the description box so you all can read it for yourself and gather your own interpretation and opinion. But like I said, This doesn't look good for Andrew, man. Not at all. This doesn't look good for Andrew. But a lot of things don't look good for Andrew. And in my opinion, he's on borrowed time right now. Eventually, the authorities will come for him either in the UK or in America, depending on what the next administration is. Because with this current administration, he'll be fine. But the next one that comes in, depending on what color is on it, he's going to be in trouble in multiple fronts. That's all I got to say about that. And with that being said, thank you for attending another episode of the Armchair Anchorman. I'm just a normie here in front of a computer chair, talking to you in front of a webcam with a microphone. Let me know what you think about this Andrew Tate's empire of abuse. What do you think about Andrew Tate? Do you think he's the scum of the earth? Do you think he's the worst man out there? One of the worst examples of manhood? Or do you follow him? You think that Andrew Tate is one of the shining examples of masculinity and he should be protected at all costs? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Please, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell. Out of the door, and I will see you on the next video.